So these sessions are not only to solve problems, but also introduce us to real-life applications of data science. So we'll pick case studies and see how we can apply Python in analyzing those data. And so that's moving forward. So every week now we'll pick a case study in Python and then see a case study in a data challenge, and then see how we can apply Python to solve that problem. So let's get started with this session. So I'll be moving over to Enoch. Enoch will be taking us through this session. Last week we installed Anaconda and then took them through the interface of Anaconda. So this week we will be exploring some data sets and seeing how to use Python in solving those problems. So Enoch, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Solomon, and everyone on the call. I see someone has dropped off. I think they were having network challenges. But yeah, so maybe I will start with doing a recap of what we did last week. And because I want to believe some of you were not part of it. So we shall have to go back and so last week we started with, let me hope everyone can see my screen. In case you're having challenges, you can let me know and I try to adjust.
Yeah, I can see the screen.
Okay, fine, then that's okay. So, okay, so this link, if you visit it, it's where you can get started with Anacondas. As Solomon said, you know, data analysis, you use different tools and what. For us as Eloquent Data, we use Python because of its enhanced features and capabilities that it has proven to have over other packages that you can use. Then also Python, since most data scientists are programmers, it's easier since they use them for doing their projects, so they can easily use it also for data analysis. But if you're interested in RI, it's also more or less using the same principle, so you can use the RStudio and get the same packages. So if you haven't downloaded Anacondas, you can visit this link and you should be able to get a copy for yourself and yeah, get started. So we went through the installation process. It's more clear. You just install, press continue. For those using Windows, I think those who are not using Windows and you have challenges, Solomon can help you. If you're using a Mac or you're using Linux, Unix environment, Solomon can help you and guide you through the installation process, but it should not be hard. Now, after installing, I assume you have your Anacondas installed. So we have a list of programs that it comes with. We have Jupyter Notebooks, we have Spider, Anaconda Navigator. Last week, we really had a look through the Anaconda Navigator and what it entails, but in case, if you read through the documentation of Anacondas, you can see most of the things. Then we have the PowerShell, the command prompt, and everything. So what I normally do is I normally run the command line interface. So, a second. So if you're at this point where you have run your command prompt and you want to start Jupyter Notebooks, I'll assume that you've created, let's say you have a folder where you want your work to be, or you have downloaded your data set and you want it to be in the same folder like So I will, let me, just a second, this must be session 2. So we have session 2. So my work is in this, I will use this data set so I can copy the data set and put it in session 2. So this is my location where I want to run my Jupyter notebooks from. I can navigate to it by typing this command. And so what happens is if you want to just run Jupyter notebooks, you just type Jupyter notebooks. It should be able to run, but still you can also specify the directory where you want your work to go by adding these lines, notebook minus dir for directory, then you specify the directory where you want your work to go. So if I run this, it should be able to start Jupyter notebooks, and then it takes me to that particular folder. So Jupyter notebooks runs in a browser on a localhost port 88,8, and it will show you your current tree of files. If I come back to the command prompt, it should show me that it will show me the link which I'm pointing to and all the other things, but our major focus is now on in the browser here. So you can see that even our data set is listed among the files that are there. So we are going to start. Let me share the command for those who may want to use it at some point. So that command, if you don't want to specify the folder, is just you just run that command. But the issue with this is if you run only this one, it means it will, by default, it will show you your desktop folders, and so the work will be messed up. So let's start by creating a new notebook. So what happens here is, since as it is called Jupyter Notebook, so you have like a notebook where you type and run your commands. So here you can upload an existing one, or you can create a new one. For our case, we are going to create a new one. And since it already detects the Python version that you have installed on your laptop, so me, I have Python 3, so it will already show me that you're creating a notebook with Python 3. So if I create it, it will open in a new window. So this is my notebook. Hello. Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Let me
Okay. I think someone should mute their mic.
Please, can we all mute our mics?
Yes, I think we should unmute when you have a question to ask, and you start by like raising up your hand then. So I think there is Tessie, she should help us and unmute her mic, because we may keep hearing some interactions. So this is the structure of the notebook. It has file, edit, view, insert, widgets, and everything. You can log out. It shows our notebook is untitled. So this is the title of the notebook, and normally it comes when you save it. So we have unsaved changes. So what you can start with actually is you save it, save as. So we are going to call it eloquent data diabetes data set analysis. You can give it a simple name if you want, that you can easily memorize. So when you save it, you can see that here up, it will change the name to your data set, the name you gave it. So this is how the notebooks happen. They be having rows. I think this is a row. So each row you're able to write in some content, either text or code. It can be analyzed, and when you run it, it can be interpreted. So what we are going to do is what normally happens is, for good data science, if you want to really be a good data scientist, you keep documenting your work within the notebook. So for example, here I can start by saying using the diabetes data set to perform basic analysis. So I can decide like that is my first content. If I want to add something, still I can add. So if someone comes here, they can easily be guided. So I can create a new row by clicking on this one here, this plus button here, which is for insert. So if I insert, it will insert a row below that one. So in Python, I will later share some links that we use to explore data sets. But the structure is that if you have your CSV file, and we have it, if I go to my directory, it's this one here, and it's the same folder with, it's always advisable that you put it in the same folder with where your notebook is. The Jupyter notebook is saved with an extension of IPYNB. So it's always better you put these two in the same directory, so that when you're importing the data set, it's easily referenced. So when we go back to our notebook in the browser, I should be able to type some commands, and yeah. So if you've been going through the course, the material we shared with you people, you realize you have reached some point where you're working with two libraries in Python, that is pandas and numpy. Those libraries are really essential, and they are founding stones when it comes to analyzing data. So maybe I will say, if you're not so familiar with them, I will tell you to still go through some of that content and really understand what pandas and numpy are for. But as for this particular session, let's try to, since it's a timed session, let's try to continue. So I'll start with importing pandas. Since I want to use it as an inbuilt library, I have to import it. Let me hope we are still, if you have, I'll get questions after doing the first session. So the second thing, of course, now after importing, so what we do is you can leave the first row, this second row, for just importations. So even I can leave it so that every importation I want to make, I make it in the first row. So I can also import numpy as NP. So I can import them, and I know, yes, I have my importations that I need to use. So the next, I can have the next row, which I can use now to do my importation of the data set. So the data set is normally imported using the pandas library. So I can say maybe diabetes, I don't know, you can call it any name. So let me call it just like, let me call it data is equal to, I use pd dot read underscore CSV. So here, this is the function we use to read the CSV file. It's already inbuilt in pandas. So what you do there is you can copy the name of your CSV file as it is. So me, I can just highlight this and copy and come and paste it in here. So this row will help me to now import my data set and have it in the Jupyter notebooks, read and running. So what happens is now I can start to use the data set now to perform some basic analysis or analytics. Some of the best, okay, maybe if I may give you a flow of data analysis in Python is actually, I can even put it here. This is let me call it like the checklist. So one, we calculate. Two, we, of course, here you calculate metrics. About your data. The second one is you perform then the fourth one, of course, we visualize. Visualize the data with plots. So this is like a checklist of what we normally perform. So here to calculate the metrics and what, of course, we do that under different phases. So the first one, after importing this, now we can start performing some simple analytics around our data. For example, now since we have our data, if I did data.head and I ran that, sorry. So anyway, there is something else I've not told you is to run this, it runs after you running the previous, sorry, I'd forgotten to, actually I need to remove this. So, sorry, I'd forgotten to do that, but in the row where you writing real Python code, where you're putting comments, you mark it as markdown so that it's not interpreted as code. Then where you're writing code, of course, here in the dropdown, it should be code. So what we are going to do is, of course, you run it in sequence. It's sequential that one has to run after the other. So what you do is before running the last one, you must have run the previous one. So it means for this one to work, it should rely on the inputs you made here. So the inputs you also need to run that row so that the inputs are imported. Yes, they're imported. So as I was saying, this is the output when you get the data and you run head. It returns the first five rows in your data set. So it's just yeah, it's just helping you to know that yes, my data set was imported to start with. Then also, sorry a second. Yes, it helps you to know that yes, your data set was imported. Then you can see, just to be sure. Also, there is even, actually, I can leave that. I can go in this next row now, and I can copy this. I run this. As you know, for a head, there is a tail. So if I run this one, actually the shortcut for running a row is Shift Enter. Just press Shift Enter and it runs. So now the last one, if you run data.tile, it will show you the last 5 in your data set. So those are some of the things, of course, you perform on your data set before you, as you continue. So you may also need to know or to have some info about your data. If I may paste this and I run a command called data.info, it will show me a summary of my data set. And if you try to, of course, interpret it, you will see that these are the columns you have, and it will show you the entries that there are 768. So here, of course, it shows from 0 to 676. Why it is 676? Because it starts from 0. The way you know, like if you have interacted with arrays, for some of you are programmers, you understand that counting starts from 0, not 1. So it starts from 0 up to 767. Then it will show you the nane values, the count, then the data type. So you see here that all our data, most of it is integers and some of them are floating values. Floating values are those that have decimal recurring points. For example, the BMI, it is 32 point. So if it has a point after, it's a floating value, because integers are just block numbers, the way you can see 48 and everything. And if you really continue just using the pandas library, it has a lot of things you can run. You can also try to describe your data. If I paste this, sorry. This is data.describe, and I press enter. So now this one, it will give me summaries of the basic, if you have done some data analysis, the basic analytics of my data set. It will go, let's say, to pregnancies. It will get the count. The total is 768. What is the mean? What is the standard deviation? What's the minimum value? This is the maximum value, the 25th percentile, 50th percentile, and 75th percentile. So it will go each row, helping you to describe. So if someone gave you a data set, for example, if you know this, if you have your data set and you just wanted to know the mean value, standard deviation, those basic analytics, you can easily perform them just using this. You get your data set and you describe it. So it should be able to give you this table, having the what? Those sorry, the analytics or the features, the descriptive statistics, they are called statistics. So by default, this function works with only numeric columns. If your columns are containing numeric values, if they are containing data objects that are not in the numeric value, then the describe won't try to calculate the mean and standard deviation of those objects.
And
But
question. Someone is
yes,
asking you to go to the previous cell and explain.
or the previous cell, this one here for info.
Yeah, the info.
Okay. Sorry. So,
or should I just go through the info? So Norman. So the info command is to get more of the data type of each features. So it's the column. So it goes through the column because in NumPy, you have a data type for every row. You can't mix data types. So the pregnancy is an integer, meaning it's a whole number. Because you can have 1.5 women pregnant. So you see that 1, 2, 3. It's all whole numbers. And same thing with glucose. Glucose is also in an integer format. So any data point that you have a decimal point after is called floats. So things like the BMI, where you have 32.9, that's a float. And age should be an integer. But under data type, we have more data type apart from integer and floats. We have strings, we have date and time, and the rest. So those are the basic data types. So Enoch, we'll be ending the session today because we have less than a minute. We'll be ending it now. So I know we've not really gone far, but it's deliberate. We're actually keeping the class to 40 minutes, 10 minutes for introduction, and then 30 minutes for the teaching. So at least Enoch has covered the basics of starting up and running your file. So from next week, we'll enter the proper analysis. So if you have any question, you can share it in the group or contact the mentor, me and Enoch or John, anytime. We'll follow up from there. So we'll be rounding up in less than a minute. So thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.